David's hands trembled as he stared at the envelope for the third time that week. Plain white paper, no return address, postmarked from their own city. Inside, a single typed sentence had unraveled 25 years of certainty. Ask your wife about Emma's real father before it's too late. He'd received it on Monday. Today was Friday, and the words had burrowed so deep into his mind that he could barely look at his daughter without feeling like a stranger. Emma, their firstborn, now 24, and working at a marketing firm downtown. She had his mother's smile, or so he'd always thought. Now he questioned everything. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming while she prepared dinner, completely unaware that their world was about to shatter. They'd built a good life together, a modest home in the suburbs, 3 children, countless memories. But this message had poisoned it all. "Sarah, we need to talk," David said, walking into the kitchen with the DNA test kit he'd picked up that afternoon. She turned, spatula in hand, her expression shifting from pleasant surprise to concern. "What's that?" "It's a paternity test. For Emma." The spatula clattered to the floor. Sarah's face went from concerned to ghostly pale in an instant. "What did you just say?" "I received an anonymous message. Someone claims Emma isn't my biological daughter." He placed the kit on the counter, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "I need to know the truth." Sarah's shock transformed into fury so quickly it startled him. "How dare you? After 25 years of marriage, after everything we've built together, you're going to accuse me of cheating because of some anonymous letter?" Her voice rose with each word. "Do you know how insulting this is? How degrading? Sarah, please." "No." She slammed her hand on the counter. "You don't get to please me right now. Some stranger sends you a letter, and suddenly I'm untrustworthy? Suddenly our daughter isn't yours?" Tears streamed down her face, but her voice remained fierce. "I have never been unfaithful to you, David. Not once in our entire marriage." David felt his resolve wavering. He'd known Sarah since college. She'd been his first real love, his partner through everything. But the message had been so specific, so confident. "Then take the test with me," he said quietly. "Prove them wrong. If there's nothing to hide, it'll put this to rest forever." Sarah stared at him as if he'd struck her. "The fact that you need proof is the problem, David. Marriage is supposed to be built on trust. Trust goes both ways, Sarah. If you have nothing to hide, why are you so against this?" "Because it's a violation." She wiped her tears angrily. "You're treating me like a criminal, like someone who needs to prove their innocence. Do you understand what you're doing to us right now?" Their youngest son, Marcus, appeared in the doorway, headphones around his neck. "Why are you guys yelling?" "Go to your room, Marcus," Sarah said, her voice cracking. After Marcus left, a heavy silence filled the kitchen. Sarah crossed her arms, her body language closed off in a way David hadn't seen in years. "I'll take your damn test," she finally said, her voice cold. "But you need to understand something, David. Whether Emma is biologically yours or not, you are her father. You've been her father for 24 years. You taught her to ride a bike. You walked her to her first day of school. You cried at her college graduation. A piece of paper doesn't change that. Then why do you look so terrified?" David asked softly. Sarah's expression crumbled. She turned away, gripping the edge of the sink. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because the truth is more complicated than you think. And once we open this door, David, we can't close it again. There are things I've kept from you, not out of betrayal, but to protect everyone. Including Emma." David's heart stopped. "What does that mean?" Sarah turned to face him, and in her eyes, he saw something he'd never seen before, genuine fear. "It means that anonymous message is right. But not for the reasons you think." Sarah sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. David sat across from her, the untouched DNA test kit between them like a ticking bomb. The dinner she'd been preparing was forgotten on the stove. "I need you to listen to the whole story before you react," Sarah began, her voice steadier than David expected. "Can you do that for me?" David nodded, though every muscle in his body was tense. Sarah took a deep breath. "When I was 17, before I met you, I got pregnant." David's eyebrows shot up, but he remained silent. His name was Jake. We were high school sweethearts, and we were stupid and careless. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. My parents were strict, conservative. They would have disowned me. Sarah's eyes grew distant, remembering. Jake wanted to keep the baby, but he was 18, working at a gas station. We had no future together. "What happened to the baby?" David asked quietly. "I gave her up for adoption. It was a closed adoption, or so I thought. I was told I'd never see her again, that she'd go to a good family who couldn't have children of their own." Sarah's voice cracked. "It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. For years, I wondered about her. Every birthday, every milestone." David's mind was racing. "I don't understand. What does this have to do with Emma?" Sarah looked directly at him, tears spilling over. 2 years after I gave her up, when I was 19 and we'd just started dating, my mother called me. She was hysterical. The adoption had fallen through, the couple had divorced within a year, and neither wanted a child that wasn't truly theirs. The bitterness in Sarah's voice was palpable. My daughter had been in foster care for months. She was almost 2 years old. David's mouth went dry. "Sarah." My mother had used her connections to find out where she was. She gave me an ultimatum: take her back and never tell anyone the truth, or lose her to the system forever. But there was a condition: I could never admit she was mine. My parents' reputation, their standing in the community, it all depended on no one ever knowing I'd had a child out of wedlock. "Emma," David whispered. "I was 19, David. Barely an adult myself. We'd been dating for 6 months. How could I tell you I had a daughter? I thought you'd run. I thought I'd lose you and her." Sarah was sobbing now. "My mother helped me create a story. We said Emma was my cousin's daughter, that my cousin had died in a car accident and had no other family. I became her legal guardian, and then eventually, we just let people assume she was adopted, or we didn't correct them when they assumed she was ours." David felt like the ground had disappeared beneath him. "When we got married, when I signed those adoption papers to make Emma legally mine. You were adopting your own biological daughter, yes. But you didn't know that. I didn't know how to tell you. And by then, months had turned into years. Emma called you Daddy. You loved her so completely. How could I destroy that? You should have told me." David's voice rose. "You should have trusted me." "I know." Sarah stood abruptly, pacing. "Don't you think I know that? Every single day for 24 years, I've carried this lie. It's eaten me alive, David. But I was also terrified. Terrified you'd leave. Terrified Emma would hate me for giving her up. Terrified of losing everything." David's mind spun with questions. "Jake, Emma's biological father. Where is he?" Sarah's face went pale again. "That's the other problem. That's why I'm so scared now." "What do you mean?" 3 months ago, I got a letter. From Jake." Sarah pulled a crumpled envelope from her pocket. "He's been looking for her. 4 years. He hired a private investigator 6 months ago, and they found us." David took the letter with shaking hands and read it. Jake's words were careful, respectful even, but his intention was clear: he wanted to meet his daughter. He wanted to be part of her life. "He's the one who sent you that anonymous message, isn't he?" David said. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe it was the private investigator trying to force the issue." Sarah sank back into her chair. "He's been calling me. Emailing. He says he has rights. He says Emma deserves to know the truth." "He's right," David said quietly. "I know he's right." Sarah's voice broke. "But David, she thinks you're her biological father. We've never explicitly said it, But we've never corrected her assumptions either. If we tell her now, she'll realize her entire life has been built on a lie. How do I tell my daughter that I gave her away? That I lied to her for 24 years? David looked at the woman he'd loved for over 2 decades and saw a stranger. But he also saw the 19-year-old girl who'd been too scared to tell the truth, who'd chosen what she thought was the safest path, even if it was the wrong one. We tell her together, he finally said. We tell her everything, and we deal with the consequences. All of us. Sarah's relief was palpable, but it was short-lived. David's phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. I'm tired of waiting. Emma deserves to know her real father. If you don't tell her by Sunday, I will. Saturday morning arrived with a weight that pressed down on the entire household. David had barely slept, and from the dark circles under Sarah's eyes, neither had she. They decided to tell Emma that afternoon, giving themselves one more day to figure out how to explain the inexplicable. But fate had other plans. David was in his study, staring at Jake's letter for the 100th time, when he heard the front door open. Emma's voice called out cheerfully, "Hey, anyone home? I brought bagels." Sarah appeared in the doorway of David's study, panic in her eyes. She wasn't supposed to visit today, she whispered. They found Emma in the kitchen, unpacking a bag of bagels and cream cheese, her long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked so young, so trusting. David's heart clenched. "Emma, sweetheart," Sarah began, her voice unsteady. "We need to talk to you about something important." Emma looked up, immediately sensing the tension. "What's wrong? Is someone sick?" "No, nothing like that. Sit down, please." Emma sat, her expression shifting from concern to confusion as both her parents took seats across from her, looking like they were about to deliver devastating news. "There's something we should have told you a long time ago," David started, but before he could continue, the doorbell rang. They all froze. "I'll get it," Emma said, standing. "No." Sarah's sharp tone made Emma stop. "I'll get it. Please, just wait here." Sarah walked to the front door, David following closely behind. Through the peephole, Sarah saw a man in his early 40s, well-dressed, his hand nervously running through dark hair that was just beginning to grey. "It's him," Sarah whispered. "It's Jake." "How did he?" "I don't know." Sarah's hands shook as she opened the door. "Jake, you can't be here. Not now." Jake's face was apologetic but determined. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I know I said Sunday, but I can't wait anymore. I've waited 24 years to meet my daughter. I need to see her." "Who is that?" Emma appeared behind them, curiosity overcoming her obedience. Jake's breath caught when he saw her. His eyes filled with tears. "Emma." Emma looked at the stranger, then at her parents' horrified faces. "What's going on? Dad? Mom?" The word Dad made Jake flinch, but he composed himself. "My name is Jake Morrison. I knew your mother a long time ago." "We need to do this inside," David said, his voice tight. "Emma, please go back to the kitchen. We'll explain everything." 5 minutes later, they were all seated around the kitchen table, the same table where Emma had done homework as a child, where they'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where countless family dinners had been shared. Now it felt like a courtroom. Sarah told the story again, this time with Emma as the audience. With every word, Emma's face transformed, confusion, disbelief, hurt, anger, all cycling through in rapid succession. "You gave me away." Emma's voice was barely audible when Sarah finished. "I was 17, Emma. I was scared and alone. And then you took me back and lied to me about it for my entire life." Emma's voice rose. "Both of you." "Emma, I didn't know," David interjected. "I only found out yesterday. Your mother." "Don't." Emma held up her hand, tears streaming down her face. "Just don't. You've been lying to me since we met, Mom. And Dad," she looked at David, and the hurt in her eyes nearly broke him. "You're not even my dad." "Emma, that's not fair," Sarah said. David has been your father in every way that matters. Except biologically. Except truthfully. Emma turned to Jake, who'd been sitting quietly, his own face wet with tears. And you're my biological father? The one who wanted to keep me? Jake nodded. I was 18, working minimum wage, but I wanted you. I fought for you. But I was too young, had no legal standing. When the adoption went through, I thought you were with a family who'd give you everything I couldn't. So everyone lied to me. Great. That's just great. Emma stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need to get out of here. Emma, please. Sarah reached for her. Don't touch me. Emma pulled away. I can't even look at you right now. Any of you. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. David followed her. Emma, wait. I know you're hurt, but running away won't help. Emma spun around, her face a mask of pain. You want to know what hurts the most, Dad? Or should I call you David now? It's not that you adopted me. It's not even that Mom gave me up. It's that you both looked me in the eye, day after day, year after year, and chose to lie. How many times did I ask about my birth? About genetics? About family history for school projects? David remembered. He remembered every time, and how he and Sarah had deflected, changed the subject, told partial truths. Every single time, you lied, Emma continued. And now I'm supposed to what? Just understand? Forgive. I don't even know who I am anymore. She left, the door closing with a finality that echoed through the house. Back in the kitchen, Jake stood awkwardly. I should go. I made this worse. No, Sarah said tiredly. You didn't make it worse. I did. 24 years ago, when I chose fear over honesty. Jake hesitated at the door. For what it's worth, she seems like an amazing young woman. You both did a good job raising her. After he left, Sarah and David sat in silence, the weight of their choices crushing them. We've lost her, Sarah whispered. Maybe, David said. Or maybe this is finally the beginning of the truth. 3 days passed without word from Emma. She wasn't answering calls or texts from either David or Sarah. Her social media had gone dark. Even her siblings, Marcus and Lily, couldn't reach her. The only sign she was okay was through her roommate, who tersely confirmed Emma was staying with a friend and needed space. The house felt hollow. Sarah had barely eaten, spending most of her time in Emma's old bedroom, surrounded by childhood memories that now felt tainted by lies. David threw himself into work but found himself staring at his computer screen, accomplishing nothing. It was Wednesday evening when David's phone finally rang with an unknown number. He answered desperately. Mr. Chen? This is Jake Morrison. A pause. I've been meeting with Emma. David's stomach dropped. What? She won't talk to us, but she'll talk to you. She found my number and called me Monday night. We've met 3 times now. Jake's voice was careful, diplomatic. She has a lot of questions. About the past, about me, about what happened. And you're just telling her your side of the story? Making me and Sarah the villains? No. Jake's response was firm. I'm telling her the truth. All of it. Including my failures. Look, Mr. Chen, David, I didn't call to fight. I called because Emma asked me to. She wants to meet. All of us. Together. When? Tomorrow night. There's a coffee shop on Maple Street, the Daily Grind. 7 p.m. She said to tell you both to be there. After hanging up, David found Sarah in Emma's room, holding a stuffed rabbit Emma had loved as a child. She wants to meet, he said. Tomorrow night. With Jake. Sarah looked up, hope and fear warring in her expression. Did she say anything else? No. But maybe this is good. Maybe she's ready to talk. The next evening, David and Sarah arrived at the Daily Grind 15 minutes early. The coffee shop was cozy, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. They chose a table in the back corner and waited, hands clasped together, united in their anxiety. Jake arrived next, nodding politely but sitting at a separate table nearby. The message was clear, they were on different sides of this. When Emma walked in at exactly 7, she looked exhausted. Her eyes were puffy, her usually vibrant demeanor dimmed. She got a coffee and sat down, creating a triangle with her parents and Jake. "Thank you for coming," Emma began, her voice flat. "I've spent the last few days trying to figure out how to feel. I've been angry, hurt, confused. I've cried more in 3 days than I have in 3 years." "Sweetheart," Sarah started. "Please, let me finish." Emma took a shaky breath. "I talked to Jake. I heard his side of the story. I also talked to Grandma." Sarah's face went white. "You talked to my mother?" "Yes. And that conversation was illuminating." Emma's laugh was bitter. "She told me things you didn't. About how she forced you to hide the truth. About how she threatened to cut you off completely if you ever admitted I was yours. About how she made you lie to your own daughter to protect her precious reputation." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "Emma, I'm so sorry. I should have been stronger. I should have. You should have told me the truth." Emma's voice broke. "But I'm starting to understand why you didn't. Grandma she's toxic, Mom. She's manipulative and cruel. I never saw it before, but after talking to her, after hearing her talk about me like I was a mistake that needed to be managed." Emma wiped her eyes. "I get why you were scared of her." "That doesn't make it right," Sarah said. "I let fear control me for 24 years. I let my mother's shame become your secret. That was wrong." Emma turned to David. "And you really didn't know?" "Not until last Friday. The anonymous message, it blindsided me. If I'd known, Emma, I swear I would have." "Would have what? Told me? Or would you have kept the secret too, to protect Mom?" Emma's question hung in the air. David was silent. He wanted to say he would have told her, but he honestly didn't know. He'd kept smaller secrets over the years to keep peace, to protect Sarah. Would this have been different? "I don't know," he finally admitted. "I'd like to think I would have found a way to tell you. But I can't say for certain." Emma seemed to appreciate the honesty. She turned to Jake. "And you? My biological father. What do you want from me?" Jake leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I want to know you. Not as a replacement for David, but as someone who has always loved you, even when I didn't know where you were. I've missed 24 years of your life. I can't get that back. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your future." That's a lot to ask of someone who just found out you exist. "I know. Which is why I'm not asking for an answer now. I'm just asking you to consider it." Emma nodded slowly, then addressed all 3 of them. "I've made some decisions. First, I'm going to therapy. This is too much to process on my own, and I need help working through it." "That's good," Sarah said. "We'll pay for it, whatever you need." "Second, I need time. I'm not cutting any of you out of my life, but I can't pretend everything is fine. It's not. I need space to figure out who I am now that everything I thought I knew about my identity has changed." "We understand," David said, though his heart was breaking. "Third," Emma looked at Sarah, "you need to set boundaries with Grandma. What she did to you, what she forced you to do, that's abuse. And I won't have a relationship with her until she acknowledges that and apologizes. To both of us." Sarah nodded, tears flowing freely. "Done. I should have stood up to her years ago." "And finally," Emma turned to Jake, "I'm willing to get to know you. Slowly. But you need to understand that David is my dad. He raised me, loved me, been there for every important moment of my life. Biology doesn't change that." "I understand," Jake said softly. "And I respect that completely." Emma stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "This isn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it's a start. I'll be in touch when I'm ready." As she walked out, Sarah turned to David. "Do you think she'll ever really forgive us?" "I don't know," David said. "But at least she's giving us a chance." Jake approached their table hesitantly. "For what it's worth, you raised a remarkable young woman. Strong, thoughtful, fair. That's because of you both." "Thank you," David said, and meant it. 6 months had passed since that meeting at the Daily Grind. The Chen household had settled into a new, fragile normal. Emma had been true to her word. She'd maintained contact but at a distance, coming to family dinners once a month, updating them on her therapy progress, slowly rebuilding trust. Sarah had done what Emma asked. She'd confronted her mother, set firm boundaries, and when her mother refused to apologize or acknowledge her manipulation, Sarah had cut contact completely. It had been painful but also surprisingly liberating. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt free from the weight of her mother's judgment. David had struggled in his own way. Learning that Emma wasn't biologically his had shaken something fundamental in him. He'd spent months in his own therapy, working through feelings of betrayal, questioning his identity as a father, reconciling the man he thought he was with the man he'd become. But he'd also come to a realization: love wasn't about DNA. It was about showing up, about being present, about choosing someone every day. He'd chosen Emma for 24 years, and he would continue to choose her, regardless of what any test said. Today was important. Emma had asked them all to come to her apartment: Sarah, David, and Jake. It was the first time they'd all be together since that night 6 months ago. When they arrived, Emma's apartment was tidy but comfortable, decorated with plants and artwork that reflected her personality. She'd set out coffee and cookies, a gesture that reminded David of the little girl who used to make tea parties for her stuffed animals. "Thank you all for coming," Emma said, once they were settled. "I know this has been a weird 6 months. But I've been doing a lot of work in therapy, a lot of thinking, and I wanted to share some things with all of you." She took a deep breath. "First, I want to say that I forgive you, Mom. I understand now that you were trapped in an impossible situation. You were a teenager, pressured by your mother, scared of losing everything. What you did, giving me up, then taking me back, hiding the truth, it was wrong. But I understand why you did it." Sarah sobbed quietly, relief washing over her face. "Dad," Emma turned to David, "you didn't do anything wrong except maybe trust Mom too much. But that's not really a fault. You've been the best father I could have asked for. You still are. Nothing about our relationship has changed for me. Not really. You're my dad. Period." David couldn't speak, his throat too tight with emotion. "And Jake," Emma looked at the man who'd given her life but hadn't raised her, "thank you for respecting my boundaries. For not pushing. For letting me come to you on my own terms." "You're welcome," Jake said softly. "I've been spending time with Jake," Emma continued, looking at David and Sarah. "Getting to know him, learning about that part of my history. It's been good. Strange, but good. And I want that to continue." "Of course," David said. "He's your biological father. You have every right to have a relationship with him. Which brings me to why I asked you all here." Emma stood, walking to her bookshelf. She pulled out a folder and returned to the group. "I did the DNA test. Not because I doubted what you all told me, but because I needed to see it for myself. To make it real." She opened the folder and showed them the results. There it was, in black and white: Emma Morrison, she'd used Jake's last name for the test, shared 50% of her DNA with Jake Morrison. The paternity probability was 99.99%. "I also did something else," Emma said. "I legally changed my name." Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. "You changed it to Morrison?" "No." Emma smiled. "I changed it to Emma Morrison Chen. I added Jake's name, but I kept the name you both gave me. Because I'm not just one thing. I'm not just Jake's biological daughter or your adopted daughter. I'm all of it. I'm the sum of everyone who has loved me and shaped me." "That's beautiful," Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. "There's one more thing." Emma pulled out another document. "I've been researching my rights and options. Since I'm an adult and this is my choice, I want to propose something. I want us to do a family mediation session, all four of us, to officially establish what our relationships look like going forward." "What do you mean?" David asked. "I mean I want both my dads to walk me down the aisle when I get married someday. I want both of you at my future kids' birthday parties. I want holidays where we figure out how to blend this weird, complicated family we've become." Emma looked at each of them. "Is that possible? Can we do that?" Sarah looked at David. David looked at Jake. Jake looked at Emma. "Yes," they said in unison. Over the next hour, they talked. Really talked. About expectations, about boundaries, about how to navigate this new reality. Jake acknowledged that he'd missed Emma's childhood and couldn't expect to have the same relationship David had with her. David acknowledged that Jake deserved to be part of Emma's life and that he wouldn't stand in the way of that. Sarah apologized again, more specifically this time, for each lie and each choice that had led them here. As the meeting wound down, Emma stood. "I have something I want to show you all." She pulled out her laptop and opened a document. "I've been writing about this experience. Processing it. My therapist suggested it might be healing." She read aloud, her words painting a picture of a young woman grappling with identity, truth, and forgiveness. She wrote about the anger that had consumed her initially, the betrayal that had felt like a physical wound. But she also wrote about understanding, about recognizing that people are complex and flawed, that parents are just people trying their best with the tools they have. She wrote about having two fathers, one who'd given her life and one who'd taught her how to live it. She wrote about forgiving her mother not by forgetting the lies but by understanding the girl who'd told them. When she finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "That's remarkable, Emma," Jake said. "Have you thought about publishing it?" Emma shrugged. "Maybe someday. Right now, it's just for me. For us." As they prepared to leave, Emma hugged each of them. When she got to David, she held on a little longer. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart. Always have, always will." Walking to the car, Sarah slipped her hand into David's. "We got lucky," she said. "We could have lost her." "We did lose her, for a while," David replied. "But she found her way back to us. That's not luck. That's Emma being stronger and more forgiving than we probably deserve. Do you think we're going to be okay? All of us?" David thought about the question. 6 months ago, he would have said no. Their family had been built on a lie, and when that lie had been exposed, he'd thought the whole structure would collapse. But Emma had taught them something important. The truth, no matter how painful, was always better than the most comfortable lie. "Yeah," he finally answered. "I think we're going to be okay. Different than before, maybe. More complicated. But okay." That Sunday, Emma came to family dinner, not the monthly obligatory visit, but because she wanted to. She brought Jake, introducing him to her siblings properly for the first time. Marcus and Lily, who'd been struggling with their own feelings about the revelations, were awkward at first but gradually warmed up. As David watched his family, biological and chosen, complicated and imperfect, gathered around the dinner table, he realized something. The anonymous message that had arrived 6 months ago hadn't destroyed their family. It had forced them to rebuild it on a foundation of truth instead of lies. And while the structure looked different now, while it had cracks and imperfections, it was stronger for it. Because now it was real. Sarah caught his eye across the table and smiled, a genuine smile free of the guilt and fear that had haunted her for 24 years. Emma was laughing at something Jake had said, while simultaneously rolling her eyes at one of Marcus's jokes. It was messy and complicated and nothing like the neat nuclear family they'd pretended to be. It was perfect. Later that night, as David and Sarah cleaned up the kitchen, Emma appeared with a gift bag. "What's this?" Sarah asked. "Open it," Emma said. Inside was a framed photo from that evening's dinner, all of them crowded around the table, faces bright with laughter. But Emma had done something special. She'd edited it to include 3 generations. In the background, faded but visible, were photos of Sarah at 17 holding baby Emma, Jake as a young man, and David at the hospital the day Emma came to live with them. At the bottom, Emma had written, Family isn't just about where we come from. It's about who shows up, who stays, and who loves us through the truth. Sarah hugged Emma tightly, 24 years of apologies condensed into that single embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us another chance." "Thank you for finally telling me the truth," Emma replied. "It hurt, but it also set me free." As Emma left that night, David and Sarah stood in the doorway, watching her car pull away. The weight that had pressed down on them for so long had finally lifted. "No more secrets," David said. "No more secrets," Sarah agreed. They went inside, closing the door on the past and opening themselves to whatever came next, knowing that the truth, messy and complicated as it was, had saved them all.